told your friend you're not okay? And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray.
Welcome in, welcome in. This is Chevy Cool Lady with Voice for the Voiceless. We have an update tonight on Mica's Law. We're going to talk to you today because we support survivors and we support justice for Mica. I want to know what you all think about this update. So I'm just going to play a quick little clip for you from the local
Stephen
Myrtle
Goldfinch
Beach.
of Murrells Inlet introduced the bill this week. It's now in committee. Well, the bill aims to protect victims of abuse that creates fear to take away a person's independence. It comes nearly 1 year after renewed calls for the legislation.
Coercive control bill in the South Carolina Senate. Now, this is nearly a year after Michael was found in the Lumber River State Park. There's been so much controversy and really, I'm not sure that anything tangible has been done to help women. It's been a year, and this is just now hitting the. It's being introduced to the Senate. Put it that way. Stephen Goldfinch of Murrells Inlet introduced the bill during today's regular session. It was read for the first time and referred to the Judiciary Committee. The bill looks to amend the South Carolina Code of Laws by adding Section 1625 140 so as to create the offense of coercive control over another person, to provide examples of the type of behavior and evidence that may be used to support the offense, and to provide a penalty to define terms related to coercive control. So I'm so curious to get some feedback on that. I hope you will let me know what you think about this. Ideas, suggestions, anything um, in the comments. But I'm also going to look into what our little Facebook friends of Micah support groups and awareness groups have to say about today's update. Okay, so stick with me, bear with me. I love you guys, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and do all these things. We want awareness, and we want justice for Mike, and we're not going to shut up till we get it. God bless y'all. Since that time, efforts to get such a law on the books have stalled. Of course, they have. This is South Carolina, people. They stalled in both chambers, I should say, of the General Assembly. A coercive control bill was most recently filed in 2021 by state Republican Senator Katrina Shealy of Lexington. However, it never made it out of the Judiciary Committee, which is now led by Conway Republican Luke Rankin. So, Mr. Rankin, why didn't it make it out of Judiciary Committee in 2021? Why? Because I know for a fact plenty of women could have been protected. Plenty of police could have had something to draw from, something to uphold, but right now there's nothing on the books to protect women. Not in South Carolina.
Several coercive control bills have been filed in past years, the most recent one in 2021, but never made it out of committee. Micah's family says they believe if one was passed then, she would still be here today.
Mica did not have to die for Mica's Law to be written.
Sunday marked 1 year since Micah Miller's death. Robeson County allegations of abuse by her husband, Myrtle Beach area pastor John Paul Miller, have gained national attention. Police reports state Mica told officers she was being tracked and harassed on multiple occasions. Since then, it's prompted many, like attorney Regina Ward, who represented Mica, to seek stronger laws.
I think that people need to be paying attention. So whenever that next turnover comes to who you're going to vote for someone who's going to be protecting your daughters, that's going to pass laws that'll protect your sister, that'll protect your mother.
The bill aims to protect victims beyond just physical abuse, using what Mica experienced as the foundation. Mica's sister Abigail Francis and Ward spent months reaching out to lawmakers, including Senator Luke Rankin, who's also chair of the committee where the last bill died. Francis said she had an appointment with Rankin set up last June, but it was canceled because he says in an email he wasn't aware of it. He goes on to say if a bill is passed in the Senate, he'll assign it to a subcommittee for consideration. Ward says she's reached out to his office 12 times via email and has only ever heard back once, very recently.
We elected you to be in that position, and you are taking advantage of it and completely dismissing a very important thing that's going on in your community. And that's sad.
Unlike others, she says Goldfinch's office answered. While the recently filed bill is almost the same as the last one in 2021, Goldfinch says all bills need work and can be amended.
There's quite a few situations in the law that aren't accounted for, what we call loopholes, right? Loopholes in the law, especially for a couple that's in a relationship, especially even more so for a married couple.
Goldfinch says since he filed the bill, he's had many victims reach out to him, making him more aware of the issue. He says he expects the bill to reach the Judiciary Committee in January and pass next year.
I wish we could do it faster, but that's the process. Just hang tight. Give me some time to work on it.
Mica's sister and father say they think Mica would be proud to see her family working to protect future victims.
I have a call back for 866 negative K, nothing further, just
I know you told your friend you're not okay. And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away. As you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel.
Okay, we're going to first go over the timeline according to News 13 of the saga of John Paul and Mica. Now, Mica was the wife, of course, of Myrtle Beach pastor, defamed, defunct, and demoralized John Paul Miller, who died on April 27th, 2024. That is, Mica passed away. At a state park in Robeson County, her death was ruled a blind, but the case sparked nationwide interest after claims surfaced that John Paul abused her before her death. And there were plenty of claims to that, may I add. Now, Regina Ward, the attorney for Mica's family, urged lawmakers last June to pass a coercive control bill. 4 years ago, a South Carolina lawmaker filed a bill that would criminalize coercive control with punishments of up to 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Because this story is over a year old and it has had so many twists, so many turns, we're still waiting and crying out for justice for Mica. So let's go ahead and start with basically just a few days before Mica's passing. On April 25th, we know for a fact John Paul Miller was served with papers. John Paul Miller was served with divorce papers just 2 days before Mica's body was found in Robeson County, according to an affidavit filed by Sierra Francis, Mica's sister. April 27th, Mica Miller found dead in Robeson County. Robeson County Sheriff Office told News 13. Okay, so we know that These things have been reported by News 13. And basically, the authorities said it that there at that time the investigation did not indicate that there was a danger to the public. They turned the investigation over to um, FBI, and on April 28th, John Paul Miller announces Micah's death. This is basically what caused everyone to become alarmed, and to know that something just is not right with this case. Something is not right with this beautiful young woman, but something is really wrong with this pastor who's standing up saying that he just heard at midnight the news of his soon to be ex-spouse passing. He preached two sermons that morning, laughing and joking, carrying on, and it was really disgusting by all accounts. Basically, according to News 13, at the end of the sermon at his Solid Rock Church, John Paul announced Micah's death to the congregation. A video of the sermon was posted online. He said, "I'm taking a little bit of a break, but I don't want to have to worry about the church." And by the way, he continued on about he wanted people to keep serving and especially keep giving because he didn't want to worry about it. But what was really crazy was he told everybody that they needed to not talk about this in this sanctuary, that they needed to just be quiet and basically let Micah rest in peace, and just keep giving. Don't forget about that almighty dollar. He said he was going to take a break. He said a few days, a few weeks. I don't know, but he really didn't take a break at all. In fact, one of his so called spiritual advisors, we know is Pastor Randall, announced for him on his behalf as his mentor that he would be repenting and being restored, whatever you might want to call it. He never did. Never did. Never had time to. He's been too busy suing everybody in town, I guess. I don't know. But on May 5th, memorial tributes pour in for Micah. Hundreds of people paid tribute to Micah. Um, there were actually two funeral or memorial services held. One, of course, at Solid Rock by the so called pastor actor Miller. The other one was at the beach, um, supported and held by her family, her friends. And she was rightfully remembered as the beautiful woman that she was, and flowers were thrown into the sea. It was really sad to see. On May 5th, John Paul released from his ministerial duties and amid Micah's death investigation. That's what News 13 said. That never happened. In fact, in the year following her passing, he's been involved with five ministries. Right now is supposedly uh, running Mercy Church. He said because he's tired of showing mercy. Basically, is what I read. Good reason to name a church Mercy. All right, so the pastor of Myrtle Beach Church, whose wife was found in Robeson County, has been released, according to an email obtained by News 13. So we know that didn't happen. This is quote of Charles Randall. I, Charles Randall, by the authority vested in me as overseer, hereby release Pastor John Miller from all ministerial functions for a time of healing, counsel, and guidance pursuant to our governing instrument. The email read. Okay, so that was just a crock. On May 6th, police report showed that Micah had GPS tracker placed on her car weeks before her death. She was tracked, she was stalked, she was harassed, so was her family, so were her friends. He was known to be able to send out like 100 texts in 1 minute. It was insane the things he put this girl through. And a lot of it was more than just harassment. I consider putting devices in a tire that then slashes the tire to be actually uh, attempted murder. Attempted murder. Now, Micah Francis, she was 30. She made two complaints on March 11th. The first coming after her vehicle's tire that she found slashed near Springmaid Pier. Remember, that was the night she went on a date. He just couldn't stand it. The second was filed hours later at Coast East Coast Honda on Highway 17 bypass because she was having to have the tire replaced. Police report that the in and the police reports indicate that the suspect in both incidents was a male. That would be John Paul Miller. And we even saw the little short clip of a video she got where she was saying walk away, and he was threatened with revenge. There were no laws in place, and nothing to even call this against the law apparently. So he got away with all this stuff, and we who support Micah's law think that that is unacceptable. On May 6th, if I end up with a blank in my head, it was JP, said Micah Francis' siblings to describe her fears amid split from her pastor husband. She was in terror. Micah stated to me on many occasions, if I end up with a blank in my head, it was JP. Micah's sister, Sierra Francis, said in an affidavit asking to be named the special administrator of the state. Well, we know that that all went to court in a settlement that made a lot of people unhappy. This is the family's business. It's what they decided with Micah's attorney. And it is how it was handled. So, you know, after a year, I would certainly hope people made peace with that. However, being that it's taken such a long time, his day is coming, I do believe. Now, on May 7th, and we're talking about a year ago, this is what Micah said in that infamous 911 call. Real AI, undetermined. This is what's reported. Micah had called 911 on April 27th, told authorities what she was about to do, and the reason why. I just want my family to know where to find me. We have the time, and by 3:03, the deputies were sent to the state park. Much happened in this time frame concerning the fishermen that we have talked about, and we've also learned of his passing in this last year as well. A lot of information, I believe, went with him. On May 8th, Micah Miller's husband groomed her for years. So this also is updated in the fact that so far two Jane Does, a possible John Doe, I haven't heard any more, have come forward. Their stories are supported. These are cases that are filed, and we're all anxiously awaiting justice for Micah. Excuse me, and justice for the Jane Does. Okay, so we know there's been a lot of just disgusting behavior in both John Paul's church, school, as well as his own father, where he basically picked up that filthy mantle and carried it on. On May 8th, Micah Miller was suspect in a now closed Solid Rock church investigation. Okay, you remember they actually were accusing her of stealing basically her own money because she used her own funds to support things. But none of that was proved. In fact, the day after she passed, didn't that money appear in the account where it was supposed to be anyway, which was really weird. I'm just assuming there was a delay on that. I don't know. Apparently, she had borrowed money, to help get a vehicle after he stole hers. was paying an attorney basically with, you know, borrowed funds. I don't know. Money was short for her, but the day of her death, she did spend $500 at the pawn shop, and apparently there was another $500 according to the fisherman in her purse, and so I don't know. It seems like there was a lot of chaos and still is around the money, and uh, I hope the alphabet agencies are on, and I'm sure they are, and everything will be done in its due time. All right, so May 13th exclusive. Okay, so this is where we first started hearing about the fishermen. I have done so many videos, and in fact, one just recently. So we're just gonna s- pretty much skip that part. Um, other than just mention May 9th, uh, was when J. Paul was refuting Micah's claims and all this stuff. Okay, so on May 10th, we learned that police records show 4 instances of GPS trackings on Micah. So, this is just something else. He actually had apologized this. I did a video on that too. He apologized and then he took it back. He said he basically lied just to appease Micah. So that was what we're given as the date of May 13th. On May 14th, a year ago, the Miller family attorney, um, whatever, there were lawsuits up in the air at that time, I believe. So May 14th, uh, we heard about the 911 from Micah's sister when she had fled there, and he was stalking her and said he was coming up locked. About in June, we learned about the infidelity and the disgusting. We were learning more sexual abuse about Micah's abuse. We were learning more about coercive shocking control. To say the words that started being reported on because most of us we're so shocked that this is going on in a Christian ministry. You know, we were shocked. So a lot of people started digging in. We heard about Micah's missions, Dare to Care, and everything going on with that. How cruel he was, how he cut her out of it. Except, of course, after her death, and he tried to put her back in. There's a lot about that too. We're not seeing grief, said a lot of language experts after this information had hit the uh, bricks, basically. Um, we heard from more family members. We heard from Micah's dad. May 23rd, more questions swirled around the whole deal of Solid Rock. He was claiming he was being, persecuted and harassed by the now forming Warriors for Micah protesters. On May 28th, we're told that even some of the other members of and elders and that type of thing, leadership at Solid Rock were fleeing like unfortunately just this picture of roaches and light jumped to mind. On June 2nd became the Justice for Micah rally. And it's going on to this day. And I'm so proud of every participant, whether it's a creator or someone standing out there or someone praying behind the scenes. Keep on praying, keep on standing, and keep on creating. In June, we saw other things. We saw Regina Ward stepping up, pushing for the coercive control bill. Um, Challenges to lawmakers that are still going on to this day. we saw court filings and we saw investigations and we saw even in August, "Don't let Satan win," details of John Paul Miller's final email to life surfacing. To wife, I should say, surfacing. Um, there were As Robeson County authorities were searching for Mica in Lumber State Park on April 27th, her estranged husband, John Paul, sent what would be the final emails to his wife at 4:51 p.m., pleading with her to not do the wrong thing and instead fully commit to God. It's just dripping with hypocrisy, is it not? She was found, of course, 30 minutes prior to these so-called emails that he sent. He was big on emailing, always emailing, big on emailing. But thank goodness, because I'm sure there's a lot of incriminating evidence in those emails. And I'm sure they're being dissected even as we speak. On September 19th, John Paul Miller sues paralegal. Okay, so he since dismissed that. He sued about, what was it, 30 people? And 1-0, none. Okay, so protesters gathering through November. He started in November 5th, the Living Water Ministry. Remember? Found in the water. Ah, what a logo. Real good. Real good in light of both Chris Skinner and Micah. Found in the water. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that got changed. That's the one that changed, I believe, to Mercy. So now in November, he got jailed overnight. Unfortunately, it wasn't long enough, but that was for assaulting a protester. He was released. He says he's being stalked. Of course, it's everybody else's fault. So on November 8th, um, is the highlight says Micah Miller's family attorney sheds light on the FBI investigation. Um, they basically had searched on November 1st John Paul's home on Coldwater Circle, and they took all out a treasure trove of potential evidence. On January 27th, court records depict the bitter end of friendship between family embattled Murder Beach. That is the family of Sam Rickman. Um, he actually was first to file uh, against what at one time he had considered his spiritual home. He was clearly being harassed, and so was his daughter. There's more about that lawsuit, and I also have done a video on that too. And I'm so happy that you spoke up, Mr. Rickman. You deserve better, and so does your daughter. On February 5th, Myrtle Beach judge denies John Miller's request for restraining order against protesters. On February 18th, John Paul Miller's former church sold for $2 million, and the current people are like wanting to be welcomed in, and they're going to clean the windows, and you know, okay, they're not supposed to be associated in any way. All right, so on February 25th, Myrtle Beach pastor John Paul was accused of being highly inappropriate with a child. Jane Doe, I'm so proud of you. Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2. I'm very proud of you. Any other Jane Does out there? Speak up. It's Get this guy. Just get him. Get him for everything that he's done. He deserves it. John Paul Miller's Myrtle Beach Church was his piggy bank and status symbol. Jane Doe's lawsuit against the Millers or ministry accuses them of presenting themselves as devout religious leaders, using their church for their own personal financial gain, while using their positions of power to manipulate and exploit vulnerable victims while concealing their actions from the public. February 26th, News 13 confronts John Paul right outside the magistrate's office. That was very good. He, of course, said he had nothing to say. Okay, so March 25th, we hear from another 14-year-old girl. Horrible allegations, horrible behavior. Then on March 15th, we found out that Johnny Jacobs passed away in an unrelated car accident. On March 19th, of course, John Paul denies all these claims. Deny, deny, deny. All right, so deny and deflect. March 21st, that's when we heard of from Chris Skinner's corner. We heard from his sister Tamara, and she started making videos, Facebooks, and wanted to know what's going on. What is going on? The case was examined and I believe closed again on March 24th. They opened this case on March 30th. They closed the investigation into the drowning. Okay, on April 1st, we heard basically Tamara speak out to News 13. Um, talked about independent witness, which was a affidavit from Allison Williams, JP's ex-spouse, first spouse, before Mica. And in that, she basically said, and I'll just sum it up in the last sentences. It's chilling to know that the spouses of both Susie and JP are now dead from tragic events. On April 10th, uh, a woman motions to dismiss the counterclaim that was the paralegal, and she did uh, receive relief. New church purchases, okay, on April 15th. And like I said, it's their dream. So far, I haven't seen anything that ties them directly to them, or even indirectly, other than the purchase. And if they are, I'm sure it'll show up. Then on April 24th, we hear what happened today. The lawmaker introduced the coercive control bill.
I know you told your friend you're not okay. And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away. As you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, 'cause every time I wake up I feel like it's